Not a test.
Let's get ready to rumble! He holding a rock, told it a block, oh you burn to my town. They said the game will mold ya. From a rookie to a veteran, well me I'm not settling. Perfection gets me crowned in the ground, starts to crumble. You can have it until you lose it. Established and proven, unions a movement. AIDS on the beat, got swords on the thoughts. Wind beneath my wings, race hell with these books. Collision course when I spar, and now I'm going off. And if your boys run your mouth, I'm like Vic and all your dog. Co-pilot on this ride, where we're going tomorrow.
Spin with Spitter. We are here. It's Wednesday night, normal time. I'm happy to be here. I'm TJ Spitter. Let me introduce my guest. There's a man I respect his recovery to the utmost as a person that's in long-term recovery. To give a little backstory, a while back I was going through some things. I had to make a call. He was there. He picked up the phone, and I was taught that you reach out to people that have experience in what you're going through. And he got me through it. My brother, Mike Torres. Big Mike, how you doing, sir?
Love and respect, fam. I'm doing well. I'm blessed, and it's an honor, TJ, to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm happy to be here, bro. I'm happy to be here. We're going to get right into it. We're talking about addiction, recovery, and mental health tonight.
Okay.
And let's start off with your story, but at the beginning, like I would like to know what your childhood was like.
Wow. Okay. My childhood. Basically, I was a first generation born in the United States from immigrants from Puerto Rico. My mother and father were born in Puerto Rico, came over with their parents, searching for the dream, the American dream. We're talking in the 50s during the golden era of our economy, so to speak.
Right.
When our zeitgeist, so to speak, as far as the society was more patriarched, where the male worked and the woman stayed at home. My grandparents, my grandmother from my father's side was that type of person that, was the caretaker of the home, mothered 11 children. My father was the second oldest of those, and my mother was the only child, and my grandmother at that time was an industrialist that worked as a seamstress in New York, and we lived in Jersey City. I was born and raised in Jersey City, downtown Jersey City, and basically I was the only light-skinned kid in my family or neighborhood at that time, and I grew up with, an identity crisis and a very disciplined home that wanted to keep me away from the streets because of predecessors, uncles, grandparents, great-grandparents that were caught in the vice, so to speak, or caught in crime. And looking out in a fire escape, I kind of marveled at that for being somebody that was, restricted at home. I found fantasy, there wasn't too many TV channels. There was only certain times you would watch TV. So I got into books. I got into fantasy and found myself at an early age not able to conform like everybody else. I always felt odd. I would look around and I was the only tall, light-skinned, skinny one, and that created some self-esteem issues, but my family tried to always welcome me and build me up, but I always felt different. And I guess that's what made me gravitate into being the louder one. Whenever I got out, I had to do things to the extreme because I don't know when I'm going to get out again.
Right.
And that's what I had done. I had learned to have many masks. I was the good kid at home. At school, I was the studious child. However, in the playground and things like that, I was the loud one. I was the one that got picked on, so I had to fight. Walking from school to home, I would get picked on. Things would get stolen from me. And I saw a lot of violence growing up, and I really was timid against violence until I was cornered and I fought back. And when I found out I could fight back, that was another extreme I got into. And I got into trouble a lot. I had a lot of consequences, you know, a lot of legalities, a lot of principal offices, suspensions, expulsions, transient moving from school to school, from downtown to uptown due to, you know, living with a home that was in the ghetto and trying to rise up. My mother was a single mother. My father was in Vietnam. He physically came back, but mentally and spiritually, he was dealing with his own things. And back then, mental health really didn't talk about that stuff or really support it.
Right.
You know, veterans came in with a lot of drug habits and a lot of behaviors that he was able to assimilate a life in society, but he had a dark side too. And that dark side at home was apparent and violent. And I grew up with that. And then eventually, you know, I evolved. I became an adolescent and I gravitated more into the streets. I found the love of men in the streets. I was looking for that father figure. And then I got involved with a gang and that was it, you know.
It was
They
just
kind of
off to the races.
off to the races, brother. You know, went through a lot of what we would call gladiator schools eventually.
Sounding
And,
like Jamesburg.
yeah, you know. But I wouldn't change a thing, brother.
Nah, it's all lessons at the end of the day. I mean, like knowing what we know now. Yeah, I get the all the time. Oh, I'm sorry you went through that. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. I'm not. I'm not. Everything that I've ever been through made me who I am today. You know, one way or another.
Definitely.
So, can I ask when you started dabbling into? So you're in street gangs. I'm not. We're not doing war stories. I don't care what gang. You know what I mean? When did you start dabbling into the drugs?
Myself, physically, I
Mm-hmm.
remember at the age of 11 stealing roaches out of the ashtrays,
Mm-hmm.
sneaking a sip of beer or a sip of rum,
Mm-hmm.
a sip of yak. I remember being an altar boy and drinking the wine when I was setting it up.
Same. That's
I
funny. That just
I
really took me back.
did it.
Yeah.
It's really common, you
Yeah.
know, if you really look at things. I would have to say that before that, culturally, you know, rite of passage, being a young boy
Mm-hmm.
with men, uncles, cousins, I was given beer young. I was
Yeah.
given things. I was very hyper as a child. I remember sometimes, you know, smoke being blown in my face, which I know now was weed, but I just remember that. And I think it was just a way, you know, to get me tired, put me to sleep so the
Right.
adults could have their time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But physically getting involved with the dealing, using, copping, that was about 13 years old.
Okay. And what was the length of that period of time? Like, you know, I was in the streets as well, copping, using, dealing. But then it just came to a point to where I'm copping and dealing just to get high.
Yeah.
You know, well, where was that shift?
That shift, I think, started somewhere between junior year and senior year.
Okay.
It was fun in the beginning. As I
It's
started
always
to,
fun.
it
Shit.
was. But when I started getting at the later years of adolescence into a young man, I started gravitating into it being more than just recreational use.
Right.
It was always having to be in me. And at the point that I was no longer really making a lot of money in big moves. I was just getting by, re-upping,
Mm-hmm.
and just maintaining my lifestyle at that point. And then it progressed as a man into more legalities, you know, more consequences,
Right.
but still not apparent that it was an issue.
So when do you think when was that moment that you realized it was an issue?
When I finally had a motivation to stop.
What was that motivation?
My daughter, my first
Okay.
daughter.
Okay. So at what age were you when you were presented with that moment?
I'd have to say I was around 22.
Okay.
Yeah, I was around 22. And I remembered a time, I don't know where, if it was in a bunk bed, um, or if it was just in a point of awareness, of clarity,
Hmm.
that if I would ever to have a child, I were to be the father I never had.
Man, man, that's crazy. It's not crazy. That's one of them things that we hear, and I know people that have that as their reservation, and sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. It's the harsh reality of it.
It is.
Listen, if you're tuning in tonight, we're gonna get a little heavy, folks. Just in case anybody was wondering, I'm gonna touch some uncomfortable topics. We're in that time period that I'm sorry, I just can't be sensitive to things that are killing people, if that makes sense. What's your thought process now? You have substantial clean time versus when you were in active use. How has your thought process changed?
Immensely. You're talking at a point where I was more reactive during
Okay.
addiction. I was very impulsive. I can still be impulsive. However, I've learned to pause more.
Mm,
I've acquired enough experiences now,
right,
mistakes, um, achievements, humility, to pause, to identify certain patterns,
right,
and seek resources
right.
outside of myself, which has afforded me wisdom. You know, I remember the old saying where growing up, there was a radio station, WBLS, every night the quiet storm would kick in. And it would end with this DJ always saying that a smart man learns from his lessons, but a wise man learns from another man's lessons.
Mm,
And like I said, because of experiences, because of a lot of mistakes, a lot of scars that I have externally and internally, I've learned to always seek the old head or the predecessor
right,
instead of the peer. Like we talk about in recovery, two dead batteries can't start a car. So I'm not really going to look for somebody with no days clean or no recovery to try to afford me wisdom on how to deal with something.
right. And that's exactly, I'm glad you said that because that's exactly how we started this is by me saying, like, I was told the same thing. If I want to figure out how to get high again, I know where to go, respectfully. You know what I mean? I mean, no disrespect by it, but like at the same time, I've been afforded the luxury of having older men teach me almost how to be a better father, a better husband, you know, more employable, like, and just things that I wasn't taught growing up, you know?
Yeah. Think about it, right? Even in the streets, even in the game, even in institutions.
Right.
At first, I know my experience is at first I gravitated to younger people, people that look like me. Um, and sometimes I was set up,
Right.
and it was always the old head that took me under his wing. Even when I wanted to learn how to get a plug and cut weight and things like that, I looked for the old head. The old head taught me how to do things, how to rig things, how to set
Yeah.
up things. Not another younger person. And a younger person in the game has no experience.
Right.
So why would I do that in recovery?
Exactly. Exactly. And ignorance is bliss, right? Like if you knew better, you would do better.
Oh yeah.
You
But what
know,
did they
like
tell us every time we got, pinned up? They always told us ignorance is not an excuse.
nah, yeah, for sure it isn't, you know. Eventually it turns into an insanity cycle.
Right?
You know, like I'm doing the same shit over and over again. Like, why isn't this changing?
Yeah.
You know, and it's unfortunate. Like, I'll be having these conversations. I just want to grab some of the people I love and shake the shit out of them and give them what I have. Like, here, like it works for me. Let me show you. But everybody got their own process and everybody got to have their own rock bottom, you know?
We can't deny nobody their process. What does it say in our literature, right? We can be locked up, preyed on,
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Matters
won't.
none.
I had a PO once time tell me, right? Every time he would take me to treatment or try to set me up into some kind of system, right? He would always tell me that he had that power over me, and he did. And I would tell him, why do you continue taking me to treatment when I'm not ready? And he said, that's okay. You can't, I would tell him that you could take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And he said, but I can keep you there long enough until you get thirsty.
Mm.
And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that because, being exposed to that over and over and over again, there was a seed planted. It just
Right,
took a while to grab root.
right. It's funny how that works. Like, cause I look back at these miracles that were formed like coincidences
Hmm.
and how the seeds were planted and how they shifted in my life to work for the positive, you know.
So that
So what is there still a void today, so to speak?
creature of habit, being human, being perfectly imperfect, I think will always be a void.
Right,
There's always a point of substitution. We're human beings. We are very materialistic to a sense in this essence that we call life.
right,
Society is always about more, 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 this, that, and the third, to fill something, to achieve something, to become something.
right.
And my spiritual journey has been to experience that to the point where I've come to a realization that this doesn't work. So then I move on. I become
Yeah,
humble. I let go of something and I try to find something else. What I try to do is find something that does not rob me from other things. Like addiction, it was one thing that took me away from everything.
mm, mm.
And I had to learn that I had to give up one thing to get everything back. And that was the hardest thing.
Yeah, yeah. How did so let's talk about relationships for a minute. How did addiction affect your relationships?
Woo! Addiction at first, I would have to say that I used the chemicals to get me outside of myself. I was very timid. I realized now that I was an introvert.
Mm-hmm.
And because of self-esteem issues and things like that, um, I had a lot of inferiority complexes, so to speak. So addiction allowed me, or chemicals allowed me to inhibit those feelings and assimilate something or mask something and become something.
Right,
However, towards the end, addiction took me away from those social circles. I didn't want to be around people anymore. I didn't want to share drugs anymore. I became very animalistic. I was a thief. I was a liar. I was a manipulator. So society had stigmatized me.
mm-hmm.
Peers had stigmatized me. People
Mm-hmm.
didn't really want me around. And I just wanted to be comfortably numb all the time. So I isolated.
Yeah, Man, the identification moments had me taking a pause for a second, you know, because I'm like, I'm everyone says that I'm extroverted. I get it. I completely understand. But there's also I want to be left alone.
Mm,
And I don't romance that too much because I know what isolation will bring me,
right,
you know.
right.
And I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I'm going through it now. Like I work by myself basically for 10, 12 hours a day. I'm in my not in my head in a bad way,
Hmm.
but if I'm only interacting with myself,
Right.
you know, there's only so many podcasts or playlists you can listen to.
Yes.
You know, I diligently have to try to like break myself out of that and like be present in the moment. It's hard for me.
Mhm.
Hard. Straight laced, bro. Straight laced.
Yes.
What do you do for fun today, Mike? What's fun for you? What's fun look like for you, Mike?
Fun sometimes looks at things I never thought was fun or I never
I
thought I
like
would
it.
do.
I like it.
Fun is being available,
Okay.
is trying new things.
Right.
Fun is watching my grandchildren play,
Mm.
being
Okay.
with my family at a family picnic, being able to cut the lawn and admire the rose bushes in front of the house, go
Right.
ride bike, go to the gym, read a book that I want to read instead of school, you
Not that
know?
was pointed to you.
Yeah, listening to music, dancing, sometimes sculpting, painting,
Right.
sometimes just getting on a plane and going somewhere new and explore, get off the block. There's so
Right.
much to life. Try new food, you know?
I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it. Experiences.
Yes, sir.
Experiences. So you've changed your life around. You've collected some substantial clean time.
Hmm.
And then here comes another shift. You want to go back into what makes somebody that's an adult want to go back to school?
Uh, let me tell you, it wasn't something I planned.
Okay.
I was content in my career path. I was blessed to find my talent. I was always good with electronics. I was always a nerd.
Right.
I always liked to tinkle with things, you
Sure.
know, take TVs apart and put them back together as a kid. They really didn't work well when I put them back together, but it was just the effort, and I would be fully enthralled. And I was blessed to learn some principles in recovery about honesty, and I was able to be put in position to learn fiber optics and radio frequencies and all this stuff and travel the world and get into training and
Right.
teach people this stuff and travel the nation and get involved with the first MIPS or multi-integrated platforms. This was remember when cable was just cable, but then it got into phone, it got into internet. I was able to study that first and learn from it and teach it. I was able to work for telephone companies and satellites and things like that. And then fiber optics blew up and then FiOS came and I was able to work with that initiative. And then one day, freak of nature, whatever you want to call it, an accident, a fall,
Mm.
not being able to recover from it as well, I found myself having to make a career change. I had broken my neck
Mm.
and I had experienced depression for the first time, uncertainty, um, poor me, what's going on, defeat. I had to
Not
muster
the
through these
poor
things.
me.
Yeah, I had to muster through these things.
Right.
And I had to persevere through it and find the blessings that I was taught in recovery and I
Right.
was taught in life that I can be resilient. So I sat down and I did an inventory as it was suggested to me. And I chose to make a career path. And
Mm.
with rights, knowing my rights now, becoming a person in society who has rights, who has gained their rights back, I
Sure.
advocated for myself. And through legal help, I made sure I acquired the means to get a degree to help me. And I got my undergraduate work and I wanted to get into addictions because at that point in my life, I've always worked construction, was laborious, but the other passion in my life was recovery. So I had to do an inventory and say, what are my passions? And my passion has always been working with my hands, and I can't do that all the times because it triggers my body and
Mhm.
causes me pain sometimes. So what do I like to do? What can I do? And I found myself, why not go into school and get a degree?
Right.
And I became a counselor. I got my undergraduate, I got my CADC. I loved it. I thrived in it. And then I got to a position of management. And then they told me, if you really want to move up, if you really want to get up there and be a director or something like that, and really one day maybe change or make a program yourself, because I see some areas in recovery and treatment that I feel I can have some insight and maybe needs changing, that I had to get a master's degree or above. I had to go to graduate school.
Right.
So I plugged away because one thing I've learned in recovery, lost dreams can awaken,
Mhm.
and we can achieve anything we put our minds to it.
For sure. For sure. And so here we are at that journey. We're at that crossroad now.
Right.
Did you just pass what exam did you just pass?
I just passed my national counselor's exam.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. And what degrees do you have now?
Now I have my master's of science in mental health counseling,
Mm-hmm.
and I now have my CADC, and I am now on the licensure path for Pennsylvania licensing professional counselor.
Wow.
I'm under supervision for that. I have to go 3,000 hours now supervised as postgraduate work in
Right.
order to get that.
Amazing. Amazing. Now let's talk about it. Let's talk about the correlation between mental health and addiction.
Mm,
Let's get right into it.
come on.
How do you feel that they coincide? I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions that I believe we both know the answer to, but this isn't for us at this point, you know?
Let's get down. Mental health. Addiction and mental health go hand in hand. Mental health is basically that, right? You're talking about your cerebrum, you're talking about your brain, you're talking about the way you think, the way you process things, the way you interact. So if something has been chemically imbalanced or predisposition, as all the theories go into, or nature versus nurture,
Right?
right? Creatures that are habitual, you're talking about a brain. A brain is like a hard drive, right? Hard drive is like this magnet. If you remember this old stuff, now you've got these chips that do it. But basically, when you put a piece of information in it and you keep utilizing and utilizing, what you're doing is, if you remember an LP, an old record, let's go back, I'm an old head, right? You will cut these grooves into this plastic disc and the needle will go into it and just reverberate the sound that was embedded in these cracks, right?
Right.
Well, the brain has these wrinkles. And this is where memory is made. And this is where neurotransmission, right, starts to happen and the dendrites start to fire. And we start going into parts of the brain where things stay. Well, if you start teaching yourself to do something, if you understand that the brain and the body is biochemical, right, electro and biochemistry,
Right.
synapses is, when you put something in as a chemical, you're changing the biochemistry of the brain.
Right.
So you're creating these paths. Like if you will go into a thick of a forest, right? You know, there's prickly bushes everywhere. And if you're going to make a new path, you're going to get scrapes, you're going to get bumps, you're going to get all this stuff until the path is beaten down and it becomes easy for people to walk through.
Right.
When we talk about addiction, when we talk about whether it's something that's predisposition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's something that's nurture, whichever, or we have found out that through many studies with twins and things like that, that people that come from alcoholics or drug addicts or gamblers, they can be separated and put into a home where there's alcohol and everything, and they'll never drink. They'll never
Right.
become an addict. They'll be in a great home, but they take one chemistry and they activate that genetic predisposition.
Right.
Or they just like the feeling. And again, continuing the path of doing and doing, it's not easy to break it. It's not easy to return to what's called normal or homeostasis, right?
Right.
So mental health has very different variations. There are variations that are chemical imbalances that can never go back because you never had them.
Right.
And if you go for a long tenure of using, you'll never go back.
Right.
So at one point, you'll have to learn how to adapt with what you have.
Right.
And that becomes treatment. That becomes recovery.
Man. Do you think that I could be fully transparent about myself?
Okay.
I suffer from it's classified as severe PTSD. I know things that trigger that.
Right.
So I stay away from that. Or I've developed these working habits within myself how to get through it, right?
Right.
So what do you think? What do you say to somebody that's severely depressed, right? And has, for all intents and purposes, they're not an addict. They have a good life, right? And they can't shake that feeling.
Right.
How do we help them?
Major depression disorder. Now what we're looking for in the DSM is we're looking at length of time. How long
Right.
have you been in this state?
Right.
Now, in recovery and things like that, we've learned that if you've been in a state long enough, let's just an easy number, 2. Let's say 2 years. In order to recover, you have to go 2 times that to return to homeostasis. So you'll have to go 4 years of unlearning. Just
Right.
like that magnetic disc, right? When you put a program in it, forensics, people that are computer forensic scientists can go into your computer and find what's in that hard drive. Even though you thought you deleted it, we can find it.
Right.
So that's the brain. It's in there. It's embedded. It is comfortable in that. If you've
Right.
liked it, if you've done it long enough, the body wants to return to that. It's called cellular memory, neuroplasticity, right? The brain can undo it, but it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
You're chemically changing yourself, or you're chemically already imbalanced.
Right.
Some people have to have serotonin inhibitors. They have to have this chemistry in order to return back to a functional state. And sometimes they have to stay like that
Mm-hmm.
because they're predisposed, either hereditary,
Right.
either diet, things like that. We're learning now that all this GMO and all this stuff, I don't want to get too controversial, but a lot of things that we've been doing with our food, right? We are what we eat.
Absolutely.
And as we keep changing ourselves and putting garbage in us, and then also there is a lot of theories of, if we look at it, the way life is, there's really no motivation. There's no, the jobs that have pensions and have career paths. We're talking an era, like I said, the 50s of my grandparents, where you got one job and that was your career. Now it's common to have up to 20 jobs on a resume.
Right.
Right. Jobs in this Commonwealth of Pennsylvania can fire you at any time at will. Right. So now you really have no protection. Unions, things like that are gone. So children now are living in fantasy, living in video games, living in their parents' home because of the economy. They can't even afford their own. So now you're talking about there's really no incentive, nothing to drive us to come out of depression and become subdued,
Right.
which is depressive. So in order to break out of depression, you have to find something that is the total opposite, a motivation to come out of it.
Right.
And then to exercise that long enough that it becomes your normal and your body catches up.
Right.
It starts to build the chemistry.
That's what we were saying before. I don't romance. I don't sit with those thoughts because I know where that'll take me, and I know how hard it is to get out of that place.
Yeah,
You know,
so
and
I've
like
been there.
I have these conversations with my daughter. Like for me, it was like 15 years ago. I just needed one win, right? I needed a little bit of tangible evidence
Right,
that this shit was gonna work.
right.
And then that one win turned into two wins, turned into I can do this, turned into that positive, let me just keep driving. That's not there today.
No.
You know? We have comments coming in. I've been disregarding the I love y'all if you're commenting. I love y'all. We'll get to them at some point this evening. I do not like to cut off my guys when they're going. Jennifer, how you doing, Jen? You're going to be on the show soon. We'll set that up when I'm done here. I love hearing someone share about the brain changes with mental health. So important to understand. It sure is. It sure is. I remember I'm an 80s baby. Mental health wasn't even really talked about. I graduated in 98 and it still wasn't being talked about.
Yeah.
Still was not being talked about. Why do you think now mental health is on the forefront of everything?
Well, like I said, the way society has been changing,
Mm-hmm.
the first power mentality of the USA, let's just put it that way. I don't want to get too political or controversial, but I just want you to get a mindset, right? In the 50s, the golden era, being an American was prideful.
For
now,
sure.
with globalization, the internet, we've become aware of a lot of things. History that we were taught, we're realizing was lies. We're learning that how can I trust somebody? We've seen a lot of, conspiracy theories in the past, and we were doing all that person's crazy. But then now, no conspiracy theories because things are happening so abundantly now that it's so chaotic that we're in shock.
Right.
So by being in this state of mind, so to speak, it's become more apparent. We've crossed the different genres or the different statuses. It's no longer the poor man. It's no longer the rich man. Look at the stars we've seen. Robert Williams. Look at Jim Carrey. Look at all these prominent peoples. Hemingway. Look at all these things that were happening and becoming apparent of what depression is. Look at what just happened with Johnny Depp and her. Right now, we're seeing that men too can be abused in relationships.
Absolutely.
So now we're becoming aware of this stuff. So we're talking about it. We have to talk about it because we have gotten to the point that we're explosive, that pressure cooker. We've been hiding it and saying everything's fine. And now the generations are saying enough is enough.
Right.
We're finding courage now to say, this is what I'm experiencing. How can I find help?
Right.
And then now people are saying, me too.
It's a lot of identification out there, and I've noticed it in different circles, the level of comfortability that people have coming to me to express their mental health issues because I'm so transparent and how I carry myself, like because there's help out there. Listen, see what we say, secrets keep you sick.
That's right.
Secrets keep you sick, man.
And I can't help you unless you tell me you need help.
Right.
And I think we, as a society, we're becoming more open-minded. You know, look at us now culturally. We're becoming more biracial. We're becoming more multicultural. So
Hmm.
now we're realizing things, because in the past, many cultures believed that they didn't have
Right.
depression and things like that. I remember in the Hispanic Latino neighborhoods, it was called melancholia. It was just, it was minimized and just,
Right.
snap out of it. But now we're realizing things like, hey, you know what, your uncle had this, or you know what, grandma had this. And some people coped with it with alcohol, some people coped with it with drugs, some people with anger, some people with work.
Right.
Some people were able to assimilate in certain manners, but some people became more dysfunctional.
Telling you, the word "shake it off" don't help.
That's right.
When you can't and you don't know how and you don't have the tools. And I was raised by an older woman. I was adopted, so like when she adopted me, she was already older. So I don't know. She did not understand what I was going through mentally, you know. So she didn't know how to help. And at that time, like, let's be clear, the resources today are completely different than what the resources were back then.
Yes.
You know, and it just shows like the leaps and strides that we've taken as a society. Because like now, like there's still a stigma. There's still a stigma on mental health and addiction, but it's not as bad as it once was.
No.
You know, not as bad as it once was. So to somebody that's struggling, right, and can't get a day, and they're fighting with themselves in their head, and they feel like they can't get a win. What do you say to them?
Keep on. Stay in the fight.
Right.
You know, seek help. You don't have to be alone.
Right.
You're not alone.
It's huge, bro. That alone piece is huge. To know, like I will scream it to the rooftops that there is help out there. Somebody loves you. Somebody needs you.
Yep.
There's somebody there to help you.
Yep. You're not weak.
No, no. What? And I don't mean to bounce around, but I like to cover as much as I can in the allotted amount of time.
Come on, brother.
What is the transition like for somebody that's leaving a rehab facility or leaving an IOP and
Right?
going back out into the real world? What is
Mm.
that transition like? Because I
Ha.
remember what it was like.
That's
I re-
Come on. You remember what?
I I didn't know how to do anything. Like respectfully, I give the most praise for Jackie's patience and understanding when it comes to just. I didn't know how to write a check. I didn't know how to do my own laundry. I
Yes.
didn't know how to cook,
Yes.
clean. What? I didn't. There was no adult.
No.
There was no adult in me. I was a 13-year-old little boy somewhere trying to figure it out.
Yes. And now we're talking about that, right? Back to the brain.
Mm-hmm.
When you're using and you're consuming anything, you're changing. Whether it's a chemical, as far as a drug or a drink, or an action, because whatever raises dopamine, whatever raises serotonin, oxytocin, all these things changes you, and
Right.
then your body craves more. And that's why we go through withdrawals in one form or another, where we miss that feeling and then we seek that feeling again. When we do these things, we've changed our chemistry. Other people that have not done these things, or have been able to have more pauses in between and experiences without changing their chemistry, this is the word mature. They
Right.
seem to mature. They conform to society better.
Mm-hmm.
When people like us, like you shared, like me, when I woke up and I'm coming out of treatment, I was physically a 26-year-old man. Society deemed me a man.
Right.
However, here, cognitively, the development of the frontal lobe, right? Or if you want to talk about Freudian theory with the id and the ego and the superego, the cognitive lobe is the superego. It is the parent, the overseer of the rationalization versus the primitive. If we start going into the reptilian or the amygdala or the limbic system, which the addict or the criminal seems to thrive on more,
Right.
on that impulse caveman type of thing. We wake up, we come out into the world, and they expect us to be 26 years old and know everything a 26-year-old, how to deal with a bank, how to make rational decisions. When we are 13 years old, we are adolescents. This is why in early recovery, you see people throwing chairs, having tantrums, punching walls, giving up, yelling, screaming, frustrated,
Sure.
because they cannot cognitively comprehend everything that's happening. They are now in what's called hypersensitivity, right? The brain, biochemistry, the adrenal system is pumping. Your stimulus is all over and you don't understand it. And luckily through recovery, we have these steps and we have these people that help us to slow down and realize what we're doing and to educate us. In treatment now has changed. Treatment now is ran by the funders. So basically, it is anywhere from whatever funding agrees to 7 days, 14 days, 28 days is usually the max. If you start now, we're becoming a little more educated. We're realizing things because of opiate crisis and because, again, transcending the socioeconomic class, because when it was just the ghetto, they didn't care. But as it crossed, now they're becoming aware, and now they're advocating for changes, and you're getting these CRS services and peer support services. They're trying to educate and employ more life skills, but we still need more of that.
Right.
We need more of that because
Sure.
we're still just getting people clean and throwing them out there to fail.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you. It's crazy. I mean, there's so much that can be taught to some, like, here, take your ID, take this bus pass, and figure it out.
Okay.
Shit makes me so mad. So mad.
Remember trying to read a bus schedule? I remember not understanding it. Yeah.
It's crazy.
How to connect, how to ask for a transfer. Come on, man.
Now everybody's got the Uber app. It's 2 clicks, take you wherever you want.
Smartphone has made me do stupid things, brother.
Oh my God, for sure. For
You know,
sure.
has dumbed me down a lot.
Yeah.
But I am grateful for it. We got GPSs now at our hand, calculators, we have the internet in our hands, and some people want to waste it on, social medias in forums or Tinder or some kind of acting out complex instead of educating themselves and seeking the answers they need.
Yeah. I think we're all guilty of it, right? We all do it.
Of course.
But it's the realization of knowing what you're doing. I can't keep up with somebody else's highlight reel. It's just not me. It's not healthy for me. I can't do it. But listen, we're almost out of time, Big Mike. I
Wow.
appreciate you so much. See how fast this time goes when we commence the chopping?
I love it, man. I love the way we just talking and the smooth
We're
fluidity of it all.
we're gonna have to do a little part 2 because I'm not done yet. You know what I mean? At all. God willing.
Hey, anytime you say the word, brother.
Appreciate that. Now, it wouldn't be a spitting with Spitter if we ain't dive into music a little bit. What's in your playlist, bro?
Oh my God, man. My playlist can go anywhere from Devo to Sex Pistols to Eric B to Boogie Down Productions to Biggie Smalls to Cardi B to Hector Lavoe to Beethoven and Bach to Miles Davis.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah, I'm all over the place. I love music. I grew up with a lot of musicians and music and artists. I go into Afro-Cuban. I go into a lot of drums, Caribbean music. I'm all over. I love music. I love music.
Me too. Me too. I have a different playlist for damn near every feeling in the world. It's crazy.
Me too.
It's crazy. Before we go, Big Mike, two things. Is there anything you want to ask me? Audible, fourth down. Anything
Yes,
you want
sir.
to ask me before we go?
Yeah, I want to ask you, like, where was your turning point in realizing using this type of medium
Mm-hmm.
to help you help others?
So it goes with the primary purpose theory, right?
Okay, come on. What's that?
What am I here for? I've worked in facilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
The town that I grew up in awarded me the key to the city for the work that I did in the addiction community.
Amen.
Um, we did an episode one time, and my wife interviewed me,
Mm,
and it was really, 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 really real. Maybe too real for me. Maybe something I didn't necessarily, I'll do it again, but like I feel like they've been more ready. You know what I mean? Because it's different when it's coming from somebody that you hold in that regard.
yes, sir.
And I realized that like having my people in the NBA, having my people that do music, having people that fight in the UFC, having all different types of professionals all over the world is cool. It's dope. It's whatever you want to call it. I love sharing my people's stories to give them their flowers, right?
Right.
But if you hear someone, for all intents and purposes, that has their shit together, that is successful, explain to you what their life was like and break down addiction and how it almost killed me, and have people like me of like-minded claws that walk that path come on and share their success stories, I hope that it gives the kid that is me at 13 at the basketball court with his headphones on trying to escape reality, right? Like, it's bigger than that. There is hope for me. I can go home and be okay. You know?
Yes, sir.
Please. So that's why part of the reason why I do it. You know? The other part of the reason is you can't keep running around talking that junky crackhead shit for so long before somebody that's got some substantial clean time and that's living a better life than your judgmental ass come around and check you respectfully.
Yes, sir.
You know?
Exactly. We need more people, more positive information instead of the way media is portraying a lot of us.
Exactly. For every one positive story, there's 10 Kensington stories.
Yep.
And I hate to say it like that, but truth is the truth. You know? And I was told you just give back what was so freely given to you.
That's right.
All this for me was free. You know? So why not give it back? That's how I see mad YouTubers and people with shows, and like throughout the whole show, their little cash app is going across the screen and donate here and show your support. I don't need none of that. Miss me with all that. You know what I mean? Get a day clean. That's all I care about.
That's it.
You
Remain
know?
authentic.
That's it.
I commend you on remaining authentic.
Mike, and you know me personally. You see how I carry myself.
So,
I'm not wearing a hi, my name is TJ. This is high school. I'm gonna be your friend name tag. If I rock with you, I rock with you. If I don't, I don't. You know. But at the end of the day, I'll help anybody that wants to get clean. You know, because I had people that weren't necessarily in my walk of life tell me to sit down, shut up, be patient, and watch this miracle happen.
yep.
You know? So I'm grateful. I'm grateful.
And that's our message, brother.
Absolutely.
As long as we stay grateful.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I'm glad. See, I'm glad that threw me off. That question threw me off a little bit because most people ask me about music. I hate that shit. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My brother, I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for coming on. We're gonna have to do this again.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
please,
end,
anytime.
I'm gonna end the show, but don't go anywhere because I want to chop it up with you real quick for a brief second when we're done.
All right, bro. I'm right here.
For everybody that tuned in tonight, man, thank you very much. If you need help, whether it's mental health, addiction, recovery, there's help out there. You can reach out to myself. You can reach out to Mike. There's people all throughout my page that will help you. You are not alone.
This is not a test.